And welcome to the Film Snide Podcast, the podcast where we are challenged with trying to articulate a love for art and storytelling. Today I'm joined by my British friend, Lucy.
Hello, everyone.
I'm glad everybody could join us today. Thank you very much for being here, because today we will be talking about Danny Boyle's 2002 film, 28 Days Later. I'm very curious where this conversation takes us today, because this film feels mostly like one big mess. Of course, I love the effort of the level of lethality in the world. Humans have devolved very rapidly in just a month. The zombies are obviously not to be trifled with, because they can bleed on you, vomit on you. They don't need to bite or scratch you or whatever. The world in which Jim wakes up in is immediately abandoned. There seems to be no hope right out of the gate. It's quiet, it's eerie. It's actually really quite beautiful in the first opening sections. But then we quickly introduce the flavor of editing, the performances, the writing, the characterization. We start to peel back the foolishness of the film. Obviously, like anyone else, I love the monster metaphor of X, Y, and Z happens in the world, in your town, and divide happens, the pandemic happens, some kind of violence happens. Zombies are a great representation of that, not unlike what we saw in Sinners with the vampires.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Frankenstein, and even early zombies kind of representing the inevitable creep of death. And it's awesome that something like zombies can be morphed into something a little more human and less universal, in that being the destruction of society. The effort is clear, but the execution is frustrating and frankly boring, because the film seems to masquerade behind its chaoticness without offering anything else except this 15-minute setup. There are some really great sections, some beautiful sections, like when Jim wakes up, he's walking through London, when they go to the grocery store, and maybe even the section where Selena's offering the kid Valium. But I think the only section that's working on all cylinders with its editing, its pacing, and it is simultaneously the most stupid section too, is when they get in Frank's taxi and they drive over this platform of other vehicles and they drop off, get a flat tire. It's intense. The rats come. You see the zombies from far away. I think it's the only time where the editing makes sense, where it shines. And I guess I kind of like the thought, the effort of this place they're headed, this safe haven place ran by the remnants of some kind of military, is not actually safe, turns out. Go figure. And we even get this little suggestion of these zombies being more than brain dead zombies, I think, with that chained up zombie dude they have at the compound, the military compound. But all in all, the film is chaotic to a maybe brain dead degree of stream of consciousness. The intentional confusion with the camera is boring and a waste of anyone's time. It almost feels like it's this failed example of anti-cinema, not unlike your fellow high school members who form this heavy metal band and they have no idea how to play their instruments, but they think all other music sucks. But yeah, man, I'm pretty low on this film. I'm very curious how you feel about 28 Days Later, though.
I think you make some very excellent points. Man, oh man, is this an early 2000s film, and it shows. You feel it. I didn't like the movie as much as I thought I was going to. And I mean, it's such a great premise that we see some rip-offs or inspirations all over The Walking Dead. You have both Jim and Rick Grimes wake up from a hospital into this world of chaos. There's something special about zombie films because they can represent so much. Maybe not as much as vampires, but you can have films like this and Resident Evil to films like Warm Bodies. I like that. Making the zombies run is definitely terrifying. There's some awareness here that this is the pioneering film of running zombies. But there's something about these zombies, maybe it is the editing, that didn't feel as scary as other zombie films. Is it because I'm watching a 2002 film in 2025 for the first time? I don't know. I didn't feel on the edge of my seat or scared for the characters at any point. At least, not by the zombies. And maybe that's the point. Could it also be that several scenes in the film, the zombies literally stop chasing our characters? Why am I going to be scared of tired zombies? But I do enjoy this representation of a running zombie because it takes that metaphor of death and merges it with this rapidness of the death, rapidness of the decline in society. I like that. I just didn't feel as terrified as I should have been. Although the first time we do see them is pretty crazy, especially in that church that Jim runs into. But why do I care? Are the stakes high enough? In a societal sense, yes. Well, at least in England, that I'm aware of. Society is gone. The broad overall crisis is clear. But with our characters, some of the deep personal motivation or connection is lacking. Situationally, yes, of course, the stakes are high. We're trying to survive. But within our characters themselves, why Jim and Selena? Why Hannah and Frank? Just because we need some ladies to later use as an excuse to repopulate the earth? Could our characters have really been doing anything as long as we eventually led them to the military compound guys at the end? The film just feels like one big allegory without caring for our characters. What happens to humanity when the system we rely on is broken or gone? And maybe that we all have a little bit of rage inside us. And once society has a glimpse of brokenness, we're ready to attack. We're ready to go back to our natural tribalism. Which is cool. I like that. But what about our characters? I agree with you. The execution is a bit boring, especially past Jim's awakening. I don't really know where the movie was headed, and not in a good way. Not in a I can't wait to see what happens way, but in a what is happening right now kind of way. Man, that editing was rough. Several scenes were just hard to watch. They were very chaotic, and I didn't know what was going on in a lot of situations where I needed to know what was going on, and I would like to have seen what was going on. It wasn't for the sake of confusion, but several of these scenes where we had this chaotic editing, we should have spent some time on them. I guess I'm thinking in the beginning of the film where we have the activists trying to rescue the apes and just how rough that was to watch. That seems like a crucial, pivotal moment. One of the best things about the film was the soundtrack and the settings, the locations. They were all pretty awesome. I think you mentioned it, but this empty, deserted London was pretty fascinating to watch. And that store they later go to, that whole scene was pretty good. I liked how packed everything still was. You never really get to see that in zombie films. You always get to see the rummaging and the leftovers. But I like this little nice section where they're all stealing, but kind of feel bad, so they leave the credit card there. I'm curious how you felt about this alternative ending or this what if situation. I can't help but to see it as a sign of indecisiveness or even a lack of value in storytelling, maybe a lack of commitment. Of course, I like the ending where Jim lives and they all survive, but does that make sense to the story, to the tone? What is the purpose of a film doing multiple endings? like this.
Yeah, of course, everyone already knows what I'm going to say about multiple ending. It's a coward's answer to a film, to a specific point. Yes, if you look at it from a siloed point of view, Jim and Selena are quickly trying to get out of the military compound after a boss battle. He got shot. He's most likely going to die in this setting. Yes. Cinematically, it makes much more sense for there to be a tinge of hope. So he wakes up in the beautiful field. They're writing help or SOS or whatever in bed sheets and fabrics. And a helicopter or jet or something comes by and to see them. Or hopefully sees them, right? That's also kind of a lousy move because they're just both ending on one note. Maybe there should be some kind of hope in the dread one and a little bit of fear in the hopeful one. I can't even begin to wonder how to fix the ending section when everything leading to this point is kind of a mess. You bring up a really excellent point about the types of people in this film. They're everyday men, and it's probably one of the stronger aspects of the movie that mostly is carried through the entire film. Because yeah, Jim is like a UPS dude, and Selena is a pharmacist, Frank is a taxi driver. It's important that these people are everyday men. The everyday man is left with the destruction and chaos that they brought on to themselves through ignorance and, I guess, along the lines of playing with fire, not realizing that hardly anything is black and white. We got to free all the apes. But I do think it's weird that we bookend that on the back end with this military compound being an organized tribe with its own hopes and dreams of, I guess, collecting women. It does seem to kind of get in the way of the everyday man struggling to survive and retain some humanity in this world. Maybe there's an effort of suggesting that even the remnants of a government, a military, is going to still try to take advantage of the everyday man. But there's such a lack of meaningful dialogue in scenes and interactions that anything personal is lost. And that really goes for the entirety of the film. Outside of Frank, I think the only strength of real character and real human thoughts come out of Frank and his concern with what's going to happen with his daughter, because he definitely can't make it out there in the world. He needs a group. She needs a group. And of course, that kind of bleeding into him being like, oh, okay, you can have some Valium. What's the big deal? The world is kind of terrible. And I think it's kind of funny because I don't think I've seen such a ridiculous, stupid death, or at least death of a character, by getting a drop of blood in your eye.
That was my favorite part of the movie.
I was like, this is so dumb. I cannot. And then the military guys pop up right after that happens. I'm just like, this is... I don't even know what to say to this.
That was awesome. I didn't think a character could die that way. It just took me by surprise.
It is a good way to establish what can happen.
Yeah. You don't need to be bit. You don't need to be torn to shreds. You just gotta wear safety goggles all the time all of a sudden.
I just hate the chance. He's looking up at this body and a drop of blood just happens to land right on his eyeball. I hate the chance of it. But then it's followed with the only emotional scene in the whole film where he changes and he has to get taken down. So I guess I'm somewhat conflicted on the point. And to your point about why you weren't scared or maybe even on the edge of your seat, I think it has everything to do with the perspective and editing. I don't know why we had to constantly switch perspective between the group and the zombie's crotch. It's awkward. It's obviously very brief. It's a half a frame of the zombie's crotch, and then, we go back to Jim and the crew and back to the crotch, and it is just awkward.
Because some of the films that have given me the most anxiety have been zombie films. I'm thinking Train to Busan. Oh my gosh, that movie left me dead inside for a second.
And I think it helps when you have a very anchored perspective. Being hunted, having your character get the jump on them, you know? Like when they're in that house with Selena and that other guy, we get that split in perspective for a few seconds, and then the zombie comes through the window. Why can't the zombie just come through the window? Don't give us any warning. You have this found footage, maybe a little documentary style vibe going on, yet we know way more than the characters. I also don't think it helps as far as like the fear factor, that the zombies don't feel like normal zombies, obviously. They feel like folks on bath salts or whatever crazy drug that happens in Florida. And there's something about that I like, because they feel like organisms. They feel like, an animal, rather than something that's this brain dead thing that's just looking for brains or just the spread of the virus. It feels like it's a little bit more complicated, especially with that moment with the military guy that's chained up in the military compound. And even to the point of the zombie dudes getting tired, we just don't get enough of it to flesh that out to the point of, oh, they're more than brain dead zombies. But it does feel like there is this suggestion of they're more than brain dead zombies.
No, that's a great point, especially with the zombie they keep in the compound, Mailer, an ex-soldier, and how he seems to have more human in him than what we've seen with the other zombies that we haven't focused on, right? We're focusing on him. And just how easily he could have broken out of that chain, how we kept his name, we kept some of his humanity. And even when Jim does set him free to go attack everyone else, that attack on everyone else seems so targeted to the people who kept him captive. It could also just be a coincidence that who he chose to attack first, that's who was in his sight. Again, like you said, we don't explore it where we can make that conclusion.
A little bit more to your point of the potential of the unsettling nature of this film, I think the only really effective section is that church section where, he's up in the balcony or whatever, and he talks, and the zombies look at him. You can almost not even tell what they are. You just see faces, you know, and they're weird. And notice we are in Jim's perspective. Why in the world would we want to see Jim from their perspective down there? Okay, humans, man, are the monsters now. Something you often see in zombie media. That's the biggest threat in something like The Walking Dead. The zombies are like a rainstorm. You just got to deal with it every once in a while, and there's ways to navigate around it. But man is the major threat. If there's some kind of parallel that they're trying to build here, it's completely lost, I think. Especially because it's comical that we just see the zombies' crotches constantly. I don't know what that perspective is all about. Maybe to indicate that they're running, which is scary, but the film allows no tension to be built. It's too fast. It's chaotic to the point where you don't know what's going on, which only damages any kind of narrative, any kind of threat. Do you want us to deal with just the consequences of what just happened? Because we don't have any character. We don't know who these people are. They have no relationship. So what consequences? Why do we care, to your point?
Yeah, we need to fall in love with the ideas, of course. But we need to fall in love with the characters. The characters mean everything.
At least Jim, but Jim is the audience surrogate through and through until the military compound, where he starts fighting and defending Selena and Hannah, I think her name was.
Because why do I care that Jim fought so hard to save Selena and Hannah? Besides that, it's a damsel in distress situation. It's saving a life from potential harm. But specifically Selena, specifically Hannah. Why those two? Nobody fell in love with each other. Nobody had any kind of deep dialogue sections where we made them care for each other. Another scene that stood out to me that had the potential of a character development moment or some kind of literary device moment to parallel something. I don't know. But it's the scene where Jim found out his parents killed themselves. And I thought this was going to come back later into play, because that's something very powerful in end of the world movies when characters decide to take their lives. I just wish we would have tied that in somewhere or done something with that. Even use that as an excuse for Jim to rescue Selena and Hannah. Jim's going to do the opposite of what his parents did and survive at all costs. Because what other reason do we have for Jim to sacrifice his life, Selena's life, and Mark's life to go travel wherever his parents were at just to see what happened to them? I just feel like there's got to be more to that scene than just, oh, my parents died. My parents are no longer here.
And because you're curious, Mark is dead.
Who we had no time to care for. Which I guess is the point, right? Selena didn't care for him. She was just surviving. She was in survival mode, and that's why she killed him so fast.
But then there's also this emphasis of we have to be together. We have to move together. We need each other.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, thank you very much for watching this abomination with me and talking about it here today.
You're welcome.
Do you have a budget guess?
I'm going with 7 mil.
Well, it says here that it was 8 million.
Oh.
It's right in the pocket, and it went on to make 82.8 million. So it made lots of money.
That's good.
And with 1.2 million people over on Letterboxd, they weighed in at a 3.7.
That is crazy high. That's almost a 4. And in no way is this movie a 4. I struggled between a 1.5 and a 2. It is a mess. But I like a lot of things about it. I like the big allegory. I just wish we would have cared about our characters a lot more than we did. Give them a reason to be in this story. Not just for the sake of, well, we need people and we need some of them to be girls and we maybe want a father and a kid. I don't know. Give me a reason to fall in love with the characters on why I should care that they survive, that they make it. The lack of meaningful dialogue, the lack of perspective, the lack of editing or effective editing, I guess it was edited, destroy this film. But there's something there with this commentary on humanity, this commentary on us, having this rage inside us, this unrestrained emotion that the activists have, that the military guys have, that Jim has. I like that a lot. Especially that introduction with Jim. It's so brief, it's so short, but it's so good. Such a great way to start the movie, but then we have this alternate ending. Or these what-if scenarios that, where's your commitment to your story, to your message? What is this indecision? It just leaves me confused more than anything. I don't want a choose-your-own-adventure movie. I want to feel entrapped in a world and a message and a story. I can see some of the pioneering behind this movie. I can see the influences, but somehow these other movies, these other TV series saw your idea and ran with it, made something better. I do really like what you have to say here about these zombies, how they're not truly zombies, but they're more human-like. They start to represent something else. But again, there's no commitment to that. I don't know about this movie.
No, I feel you pretty much entirely. I will say I love the point of Jim having something happen to him and he finds himself in the hospital, and whatever happened to him ended up saving his life. At least for a few days. I don't know. Maybe he does end up dying at the end of 28 days. The theme song, kind of ultimately, it's kind of the same tune that picks up. It's great. There are a lot of great ideas here. The film just can't get out of its own way. It reminds me a lot of The Matrix and Gladiator and Fight Club and even Mario 64, where there's just this importance to these properties, and reverence and love and respect comes out of that. And that is an interesting perspective, to have this kind of more objective perspective of influence and whatnot. But this film is by and large a big miss for me, even with its mighty efforts. It's a solid 1.5, I think, for me. It's not a real movie, but it's got a lot of juice in the tank. It just catches itself on fire. So yeah, man, thank you very much again for talking about this film, and thank you guys for listening to this episode of The Filmistines. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Remember, we post every Wednesday and Friday with brand new episodes of The Filmistines on all of the free feeds like YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Pandora, and Patreon. Our next episode will be on the sequel to 28 Days, 28 weeks later. Maybe it will be better than 28 days. We'll see. Please look forward to that. Remember to leave nice comments, thoughts, and ideas on our Patreon as well. Come subscribe. Come write in. Come request a movie. We appreciate all the support. Thank you guys very much. But until next time, take care and bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of The Filmistines. Thanks for tuning in and joining us on our cinematic journey. We hope you enjoyed the discussion and gained some new insights and perspectives on the world of movies. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform, especially Patreon at patreon.com/filmistines. And follow us on social media for more film-related content. We love hearing from our listeners, so if you have any feedback, suggestions, movie recommendations, or book recommendations, please feel free to reach out to us. Until next time, keep watching and keep loving the magic of movies. This is The Filmistines, signing off.